Deep in the heart of West Africa's emerald rainforests, an empire arose, casting its legacy not in stone, but in metal and might. For over 700 years, from the 1100s to 1897, the Benin Empire flourished in what is now modern Nigeria. It was a civilization that evolved from ancient Edo roots, becoming legendary for its unparalleled bronze art and a political system so intricate it baffled outsiders. But what secrets were forged within its walls? What mysteries allowed its throne to endure for centuries? The story begins long before European ships ever reached its shores. The Edo people, the founders of Benin, had established a powerful kingdom. Their origins are woven into myth and oral tradition, speaking of a dynasty that began with Ogizo, the rulers of the sky. These early kings laid the groundwork for a society centered on strong spiritual and political leadership. By the 12th century, a new dynasty was established, with Eweka I becoming the first Oba, or king, of Benin. This marked the beginning of a new era, one that would see the kingdom grow into a formidable empire. The heart of this empire was its capital, Benin City. This was no ordinary settlement. It was a fortified marvel, a sprawling metropolis protected by a complex network of massive earthen walls and moats. Early European visitors were stunned by what they found. A Dutch account from the early 1600s described Benin City as vast, with broad, straight streets and houses kept impeccably clean. The most impressive feature was the Oba's Palace, a gigantic complex of courtyards, galleries, and chambers, its walls and pillars adorned with gleaming bronze plaques that chronicled the empire's history. These walls weren't just for defense, they were a statement of power, an announcement to the world of the empire's strength and organization. The empire reached its zenith between the 15th and 17th centuries, under the rule of a series of powerful and visionary Obas. One of the most famous was Allure the Great, who reigned in the mid-15th century. He was a warrior king, a mystic, and a brilliant administrator. Allure is credited with transforming Benin from a city-state into a true empire. He expanded its territory through military conquest, but his most lasting achievement was the centralization of power. He reformed the political structure, creating a system of councils and title holders that balanced the authority of the Oba. Secret societies, such as the Uzama and Egayevbo, played crucial roles in governance, advising the king and ensuring the stability of the state. This complex political machine was the engine that drove the empire, allowing it to manage its vast resources and diverse populations effectively. But what truly sets Benin apart in the annals of history is its art. The artisans of Benin were masters of their craft, particularly in bronze casting. Using the sophisticated lost wax technique, they created some of the most realistic and artistically accomplished sculptures the world has ever seen. This artistic tradition was heavily influenced by the earlier Yoruba kingdom of Ife, but the Benin artists developed a style that was uniquely their own. They produced thousands of bronze heads, intricate plaques, and ceremonial bells. These were not mere decorations. They were historical documents, a visual archive of the empire. The plaques that once decorated the palace walls depicted everything from grand court ceremonies and religious rituals to victorious battles and encounters with foreign traders. The bronze heads were commemorative portraits of past Obas and queen mothers, serving as a physical link to the ancestral world and reinforcing the divine nature of the monarchy. Each piece tells a story, offering a priceless window into the life, beliefs, and history of the Benin people. In the late 1400s, a new chapter in Benin's history began with the arrival of Portuguese explorers. This was the start of a long and complex relationship with Europe. Initially, trade was the primary focus. The Portuguese were eager for West African goods like ivory, pepper, and fine cotton cloth. In return, they brought items that the Benin kingdom desired, most notably brass and copper, which were essential for the kingdom's bronze casting industry. These metals were often traded in the form of manillas, heavy bracelets that became a form of currency. This trade fueled the golden age of Benin art, providing the raw materials for the creation of more and more magnificent bronze works. The relationship was not limited to commerce. Diplomatic ties were formed. Benin sent an ambassador to the court of Portugal in the late 15th century, and Portuguese missionaries and merchants were welcomed in Benin City. They mingled in the Oba's court, exchanging knowledge and ideas. This period was one of mutual respect and exchange. The Benin Empire was a powerful, sovereign state, dealing with the European powers on its own terms. However, this era of exchange was also shadowed by a darker trade. The burgeoning Atlantic slave trade began to exert its influence. While Benin participated in this trade, often selling captives from its wars, it was a complex and devastating force that would have long-lasting consequences for the entire region. The insatiable European demand for enslaved labor warped local economies and fueled conflicts, contributing to a gradual shift in the balance of power. By the 19th century, the world was changing rapidly. The dynamics of power between Africa and Europe had shifted dramatically. European nations, now in the throes of industrialization, were looking to expand their empires and secure direct control over Africa's resources. Britain, in particular, had its eyes on the riches of the Benin region, including its valuable palm oil. Tensions mounted as the British sought to undermine the Oba's control over trade. The Oba, for his part, resisted British encroachment, attempting to maintain his kingdom's sovereignty. The conflict came to a head in 1897. A British delegation, led by Acting Consul General James Phillips, attempted to enter Benin City during a sacred festival, despite being warned not to. The delegation was ambushed, and most of its members were killed. The British response was swift and brutal. They organized what they called a punitive expedition. A force of 200 soldiers, armed with modern weaponry, marched on Benin City. The city's defenders, despite their courage, were no match for the British firepower. The city was conquered, looted, and burned to the ground. The destruction was catastrophic, but the greatest tragedy was the systematic looting of the kingdom's treasures. The British soldiers plundered the Oba's palace, stripping it of its priceless artifacts. Thousands of bronze plaques, heads, ivory tusks, and other ceremonial objects were seized. These were not just art objects. They were the historical and spiritual soul of the Benin people. They were the kingdom's archives, its sacred heirlooms, the very embodiment of its identity. The Benin bronzes, as they came to be known, were shipped back to London and auctioned off to pay for the expedition. From there, they were scattered across museums and private collections in Europe and North America. The Benin Empire had fallen. Its city was in ruins, its Oba exiled, and its art silenced in foreign lands. Today, the legacy of the Benin Empire is a tale of two halves. On one hand, we have the memory of a great African civilization, a testament to sophisticated governance, immense wealth, and breathtaking artistic achievement. On the other, we have the story of its violent destruction and the enduring wound of cultural theft. The Benin bronzes, now displayed in institutions like the British Museum, the Metropolitan Museum of Art, and the Humboldt Forum in Berlin, are admired for their beauty. But their presence in these museums is a constant reminder of a brutal colonial act. In recent years, the call for the restitution of these artifacts has grown louder. Nigeria has formally and repeatedly requested their return, arguing that these objects are not just art, but are an inalienable part of their cultural heritage. The debate is complex. Some museums argue that they are universal museums that preserve these artifacts for all of humanity. But for the Edo people, the descendants of the Benin Empire, the bronze's absence is a deep cultural loss. They are not just objects in a display case. They are connected to their ancestors, their rituals, and their history. How can a history be fully understood when its primary documents are held captive thousands of miles away? Slowly, tentatively, the tide is beginning to turn. Some museums and universities have begun to return the bronzes they hold. Germany has pledged to return a substantial number of its collection, but the majority remain in exile. The story of the Benin Empire is therefore not over. It continues to be written today, in the halls of museums, in the chambers of governments, and in the hearts of the Edo people who long for the return of their stolen heritage. The fall of Benin raises profound questions. Was it simply a casualty of British imperial ambition? Or were there internal weaknesses that contributed to its decline? And what do we do now? The stolen bronzes sit in their glass cases, their gazes seemingly questioning our modern world. What untold secrets of governance, art, and history do they hold? And what is our responsibility to the culture from which they were taken? As we admire their beauty, we must also confront the violent history of their acquisition and ask a critical question. In whose hands do these keys to history truly belong? Thank you for joining us on this journey into the heart of the Benin Empire. What are your thoughts on this complex history? Should the bronzes be returned? Let us know in the comments below. And if you found this story compelling, please like this video, subscribe to our channel, and hit the notification bell so you don't miss our next exploration into the past.